Discover the amazing secret hidden inside this safe. It changed everything for her forever. As Sarah stood in the dim light of her father's attic, surrounded by the echoes of a past she tried her best to forget, she could feel the weight of every choice, every betrayal, and every moment of silence that marked their estrangement. The chill in the air matched the tightness in her chest, reminding her of the decades of unresolved pain. She was here not just to mourn a father she barely knew, but to confront his legacy and the haunting question of what it meant for her and her daughter, Emily. Her fingers brushed against the rusted edges of a safe, obscured by shadows and a stack of dusty old books. As she gazed at it, memories of stern lectures about hard work and integrity played like old, worn-out film reels in her mind. The values he preached seemed warped alongside the hurt he caused. Would he even want her to delve into this? Did he hide something worthy of discovery or merely his failures? Each click of the lock promised answers but only reverberated with frustrating silence. Her heart pounded as she tried to fit the rhythm of her ambitions into the remnants of his hidden world. What would it mean for Emily? What would it reveal about their future? The weight of 100 questions anchored her, but also fueled a desperate resolve. She leaned into the task, her fingers trembling with both anticipation and dread, urging her mind to push past the barrier of resentment. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tension coiled tightly within her. What if, after all this, her father had left nothing more than a reminder of all the things he never accomplished? Her fingers hesitated above the dial. Anxiety and determination crashed waves against each other within her, a tide of doubt that could easily pull her under. But pressing on was her only choice, if not for herself, then for Emily, who she swore would have a life defined by possibilities rather than limitations. With renewed vigor, she leant her ear closer to the safe, her breath catching in her throat. A gentle crack, an audible click, then the safe swung open. Dust motes danced in the sunlight spilling through the window, illuminating a mix of faded bills and letters. As she rifled through the contents, snippets of her father's life unfolded. Ghosts of his dreams fought through the layers of neglect. These weren't just old papers, they represented a legacy, perhaps even hope. But then came the disquieting realization: how much of this was inheritance, and how much was burden? Struggling to sift through a cocktail of shock and intrigue, a familiar weight pressed on her heart. What if she wasn't strong enough to carry this legacy? As the letters slipped through her fingers, doubts whispered that maybe she wasn't meant to carve the future she envisioned. The safe's contents loomed ominously, promising change, but at what cost? With her mind racing through every conceivable outcome, Sarah faced a relentless storm of internal tumult. Should she follow the tangled threads of her father's past or forge her own path anew? The attic thickened with vulnerability, and she stood on a precipice. Was she ready to embrace the uncertain tapestry that would define them? The shadows of her father loomed large, leaving only one thing clear: uncertainty was the only certainty ahead. The suffocating silence in the attic pressed in on Sarah as she stared at the scattered remnants of her father's life. Sunlight barely penetrated the dust, creating a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil that raged inside her. Each item a crumpled love letter, an old photograph, a stack of bills was an artifact of choices made long ago, choices that now had implications for her own life. Her heart pounded as her mixed feelings swirled: anger, curiosity, and a flicker of longing intermingled like shards of glass. She picked up one of the letters, the paper fragile yet filled with raw emotion. The looping script was unmistakably familiar. It was the way he wrote when he was trying to express his feelings, something he had never found the courage to do in person. Sarah's thumb traced over the ink, her mind racing with thoughts of why he felt compelled to hide this side of himself. What drove him to bury his vulnerability so deep? As she read the letter, a fire ignited within her. It spoke not only of dreams but insecurities, the very contradictions that made him human. For the first time, Sarah felt the chasm of understanding narrow, the decades of distance beginning to close. Tears blurred her vision, and for an instant, she considered that she could reconcile her father's shortcomings with her own desires. Could acknowledging his flaws also empower her to overcome her own? Clutching the letter tightly, Sarah's resolve began to solidify. She wouldn't allow the baggage of her father's past to dictate her destiny. This was her moment to redefine her narrative, rather than wade through the remnants of his failures. Drawing in a shaky breath, she allowed determination to replace despair. She needed to find the strength to embrace this journey, not just for herself, but for Emily. How could she teach her daughter resilience if she remained shackled by her father's limitations? A flicker of movement caught her eye, and she looked to the unopened bits hidden away at the back of the safe, drawing her closer. Each item seemed to evoke a new question. What did they mean? She hesitated momentarily, mulling over the implications of what she might discover. An unknown legacy awaited her, one that felt like a double-edged sword. Would she gain wisdom, or would the revelations lead to further despair? With each careful motion, she unearthed envelopes marked with dates from years gone by. The contents documents, plans, contracts hinted at ambitions that never came to fruition. Bitterness simmered in the back of her throat. How could he dream so grandly yet allow them to slip through his fingers? As she pieced together his hopes, a realization dawned: his failures could provide her with valuable lessons in both humility and tenacity. Her breath became steadier, more deliberate. Sarah was ready to confront the uncomfortable truth embedded in those papers. If her father couldn't achieve his dreams, it didn't have to reflect her own prospects. Never again would she allow anyone's legacy to dictate who she could be. The shadows of doubt began to recede, replaced by a burgeoning sense of clarity. What if she translated this newfound understanding into action? The essence of his dreams could guide her towards forging a unique identity, one that embraced both her background and her aspirations. She felt emboldened, resolved to uncover the depths of her father's legacy, not as a burden, but as a catalyst for her evolution. Suddenly, a memory shot up unbidden: her father's own counsel about making the most of opportunities. Could it be that his greatest lesson lay in this very moment? Sarah shifted her focus back to the safe. She wasn't just piecing together fragments of his life, she was crafting her own story from the ashes of his failures. As she stood amid the remnants of the past, a new determination pulsed through her veins. The question remained: was she truly ready to confront what lay ahead? With one final look at the treasures she unearthed, she understood that the time had come to face not just her father's legacy, but her own fate. What would it mean for her identity and, more importantly, for Emily's future? And just as the answers beckoned, a creak echoed loudly from the attic stairs, making her heart race, a sign she was no longer alone in this journey. An electric thrill shot through Sarah as the creaking staircase announced a presence. She turned, her heart pounding in her chest, both anxious and curious. It could be Emily, looking for her mother, or perhaps even a neighbor checking in. Yet, as the footsteps grew closer, Sarah felt a mix of dread and anticipation. The attic felt oppressive again, almost claustrophobic. Shadows danced along the walls, shifting in tandem with the flurry of emotion speeding through her. Would whoever was ascending represent a challenge to her newfound resolve? Or could they be an unexpected ally, someone who might understand the weight of the inheritance she was beginning to grasp? The hatch creaked open, revealing a familiar silhouette. It was her brother, Matt. His gaze met hers, a mixture of surprise and discomfort evident on his face. He had always been the strong one, confident, purposeful, attributes she often wished to emulate but could never quite connect with herself. "What are you doing up here?" he asked, his voice laced with concern, yet there was a hint of guardedness. I needed to see what was left behind," she replied, barely able to meet his eyes. The fragile letter slipped from her fingers and fluttered down like a dying leaf, landing near her feet. "Dad's stuff?" he asked, stepping further into the dim light, scanning the mementos strewn across the floor. You shouldn't dwell on it. He's gone. We have our lives now. A flare of irritation ignited within Sarah. Why did it feel as though he was dismissing everything she was discovering? That's just it, Matt. I'm done running from it. There's so much here that could help me understand him and myself. His brow furrowed, and she could almost see the cogs turning behind his eyes. Understand him? You think digging into his past is going to change anything? He made his choices, and we make our own. What's the point? The point is that his choices can teach me something, she said, her voice rising a notch, losing patience with his apathy. Maybe I could build something better, something real for Emily. Something he never had the courage to create. Matt's expression softened, the rigidness wavering, revealing a flicker of understanding. Perhaps he didn't realize the turmoil she'd been through, the questions spiraling in her mind long after their father's passing. Seeing his walls drop, something urged Sarah to push further. Don't you want to know why he didn't pursue his dreams? I feel like I could learn from his mistakes. Maybe there's a reason behind it. There was vulnerability now in her tone, and she could see the remnant flickers of interest in his eyes. Maybe, he conceded reluctantly, but digging too deep can sometimes cut deeper. But it could also heal, she countered, surprising herself with the fierce conviction in her voice. Matt crossed his arms, a defensive gesture that indicated he was mulling her words. She realized then that this conversation held potential. It might not just be the stories of the past she had to confront, it was also the relationship with her brother, a bond strained by silence and unacknowledged grief. And then she heard it, the unmistakable sound of paper rustling beneath her feet. Her heart raced as she bent down to retrieve the letter that had slipped unnoticed earlier. Raising it for him to see, she said, "Look at this. This was his dream, a wish, really. It's not just about failure, it's about understanding who he was too." Matt took a step closer, curiosity piqued, but even as the tension shifted, Sarah felt a sense of impending conflict. She had opened a door she couldn't close, and now, as the shadows receded, she needed to usher her brother through with her. Would he be willing to face their father's legacy as she was? Their shared inheritance held secrets that could forge their paths. Would they rise together or remain shackled by the ghosts of the past? Suddenly, uncertainty washed over her. What if neither of them was ready for the journey ahead? Sarah locked eyes with her brother, gauging his willingness to plunge into the depths of their father's truth alongside her. In that moment, standing amongst memories and unfulfilled dreams, she felt the raw, jagged edges of their relationship, ready to either mend or tear apart. "Are you with me, Matt?" she asked. The question hung heavily in the air, an invitation laced with anxiety. What would his answer mean for her quest for herself and for Emily? As his silence stretched, the attic grew colder, heavy with unspoken words that might change everything. The weight of silence hung thick in the attic, pressing down on Sarah as she awaited Matt's response. Would he join her in this exploration, or would he retreat to the safety of the past, where unresolved issues lingered like shadows on the outskirts of their memories? This moment mattered deeply, the path forward felt shrouded in uncertainty. Finally, Matt inhaled sharply, breaking the spell of their shared gaze. "I don't know, Sarah," he admitted, his voice cracking slightly. "What if there's nothing to learn? What if it just brings up more pain?" "Pain is part of growth, Matt," she forced herself to say, her heart racing with each syllable. "We can't hide behind it anymore. We owe it to ourselves and to Emily to know the truth." An internal battle flickered across Matt's face. His protective instincts clashed with a yearning for connection that had lain dormant for too long. It was a tension Sarah recognized all too well, a desire to escape the mess entangled in their family's legacy, contrasted with an aching need to confront it head-on. She felt vulnerability seep under her skin. "Okay," he finally said, a cautious determination surfacing in his posture. "Let's dig deeper. But I'm not promising it will be easy." Relief coursed through Sarah, mingled with renewed apprehension. As Matt stepped closer to examine the letter cradled in her hands, she felt that common ground forming, a fragile bridge spanning their emotional chasm. "Read it," she urged, her heart pounding as she held it out. She watched him scan the handwritten words, his expression shifting from confusion to contemplation. They both felt the weight of their father's words, the dreams that remained unfulfilled, cast like shadows on their own aspirations. "He wanted to be a writer," Matt murmured, the realization settling over them like a blanket. "But he never even tried. That's what I mean. Look at all of his regrets. If I can understand them, I might be able to avoid making the same mistakes," Sarah replied, the urgency threading through her voice. "It's not just about unlocking his past but unlocking my future too." Matt fell silent, the conflicting emotions clear in the furrow of his brow. He seemed to struggle with accepting their father's limitations, not wanting to admit that he too could be vulnerable to similar failures. What if? He hesitated, his voice trailing off. The doubt in his eyes spoke volumes, they were grappling with a lineage of hesitance and fear. "What if we don't want to become him?" Sarah finished softly, sensing the barriers he was trying to dismantle inside. She understood then they weren't just digging into their father's life but wrestling with their own self-doubts. "What if we can rewrite that story?" She dared to imagine, allowing the hope to echo in her mind. "What if we can unlock a future that isn't defined by his mistakes?" Matt met her gaze with a flicker of realization. The seeds of possibility were taking root, the obstacles of the past now had the potential to become stepping stones toward growth. But could they truly challenge the narratives that had chained them for so long? Before she could analyze further, another sound pierced the attic's heavy silence. A soft thud came from the corner, where an old wooden chest lay half open, a relic they had overlooked amidst the other artifacts of their father's life. "What's that?" Matt asked, his curiosity ignited. Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline. This could be another key, a real artifact from their father's life that could redefine everything. Taking a deep breath, she stepped toward the chest. What lay inside could reveal more than just memories, it might unravel the threads connecting their past to an uncertain future. But would they be ready to confront what was hidden within? As her fingers brushed the worn edge of the chest, anticipation surged through her. The moment had arrived, the true exploration was about to begin. What might they uncover that could change everything they thought they knew about their family, and themselves? Sarah hesitated as she knelt beside the aged chest. Dust settled like a thin veil over its surface, remnants of a time long past. Her heart raced in rhythm with her thoughts, a medley of hope and trepidation intertwining. She couldn't shake the feeling that whatever lay inside might be pivotal, revealing not just fragments of their father's life, but potentially redefining their own. "Should we open it?" Matt's voice broke through her moment of contemplation. He stood a few feet away, his posture tense but curious, fingers drumming nervously against his thigh. Sarah noted the way he shifted his weight from one foot to the other, his eagerness at odds with the apprehension etched across his face. "Yes," she replied, forcing confidence into her tone even as uncertainty gnawed at her insides. "I think we need to. It's time we see what he left behind." With that, she pulled the chest open fully, a creaking protest echoing in the quiet attic. Inside, a collection of items lay nestled, yellowed photographs, frayed pages of notebooks, and a small leather-bound journal. In spite of the age, each piece radiated its own energy, serving as a gateway into their father's mind. Matt leaned in, his fingers grazing over the photographs first. "These are old," he murmured, examining an image of their father in his youth, smiling with a woman who was unfamiliar to them. There was something liberating in studying the expression on his father's face. It was youthful and free, nowhere near the confines of regret that had colored his later years. "Who is she?" "I don't know," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. Her mind struggled to comprehend the significance of the faces on the paper, yet she felt an urgency to find connections. Every item was a fragment of a larger puzzle, calling out for interpretation. With renewed determination, Sarah's fingers delved into the leather journal. The cover felt worn, almost fragile, as if it were a cherished object throughout their father's life. She opened to the first page, her heart pounding as she began to read. Fragments of poetry filled the lines, filled with emotion, passion, vulnerability, longing. It was as if she were peering into the soul of a man she barely knew. Words flowed with a lyrical elegance, hope strung together in a tapestry of dreams. Matt's voice cracked, his attention now divided between her and the words she read. This is incredible. He never told us about any of this. Maybe he didn't know how, Sarah pondered aloud. What if he struggled with this side of himself? What if he was afraid to be open? Each revelation resonated with her own fears about pursuing her ambitions. She felt the weight of her father's unfulfilled dreams mirror her own hesitations and longing. What if we've been too afraid to embrace the risks that come with hope? As she read on, snippets of discontent emerged, tinged with regret. They were themes she recognized, the quiet battles of self-doubt and the dreams left unchased. Each line ignited something within her, an understanding that growth required facing discomfort and embracing struggles. It was no longer a matter of merely uncovering their father's past, but a chance for them to reclaim their futures. You don't have to follow his path, Matt broke into her thoughts, his eyes flaring with a realization. You can carve out your own. Maybe we both can, she replied, the weight of his words giving her strength. The door to possibility swung wider with each realization, beckoning them forward. But just as her resolve began to solidify, a sharp longing for closure threatened to subdue her burgeoning courage. What if I fail? Failure is only one option, Matt countered, his voice steady and earnest. What if we succeed? What if we uncover parts of ourselves that are waiting to be unleashed? The attic, once suffocating with silence, now buzzed with the potential of their journey. They were stepping into an unknown territory laden with questions, but the fear that had once dominated each moment took a backseat to a creeping sense of empowerment. As Sarah closed the journal, a flutter of determination surged through her. The artifacts revealed were more than relics, they were an invitation, a call to disrupt the familial patterns of fear that they had inherited. But even as they reveled in newfound hope, a nagging thought remained in the back of her mind. What truths would emerge next? Was there more behind the closed pages of their father's life waiting to be confronted? With that lingering uncertainty, they were left on the precipice, staring into the unknown. The next step awaited just beyond their reach, and Sarah knew deep within her that the time had come to face whatever shadows still loomed ahead. Sarah sat cross-legged on the attic floor, the remnants of their father's past spread before her like an intricate tapestry. The journal lay heavy in her hands, and the weight of its words began to settle around her like a shroud. Despite the initial exhilaration, doubt began to weave its way back in, coiling tightly around her resolve. The room felt larger now, a cavern of unresolved emotions and unfulfilled dreams. Do you think he wanted us to find this? Matt asked, breaking the contemplative silence. His eyes searched hers for answers, but Sarah realized she wasn't entirely sure what she believed anymore. The remnants of their father's life flickered in her mind like shadows, teasing her with half-formed possibilities. I think maybe he wanted us to understand him, to see that there was more than what we experienced. Her voice reflected her own uncertainty. But what if I can't be that person? What if uncovering these truths just leads to more questions? Matt shifted closer, studying her face intently. What if it leads to a chance to become better? To grow in ways we've never allowed ourselves? His earnestness hung in the air, illuminated by the fading light filtering through the attic window. His words echoed within her as she resumed reading the journal. Each poem resonated, embroidered with vivid images of loss and yearning, a window into the emotional landscape their father had navigated. Stories of passion intertwined with fears that mirrored her own. Lines like "if not now, then when?" stirred something deep, awakening ambitions she had buttoned up tight. What if I fail? She murmured again, sounding more like a mantra than a question. Then you fail, and you try again, Matt replied with a surprising conviction. Isn't that what he was trying to say? As Sarah considered this, clarity dawned. Their father's life had been riddled with questions, and maybe it was time she embraced the inevitability of uncertainty in her own journey. With each word she absorbed, the shadows of self-doubt began to recede, slowly replaced by flickers of resolve. They were the echoes of passions unrealized, and they belonged to her just as much as they had to him. Matt's gaze softened as he flipped through the old photographs, revealing more moments of joy and vulnerability. "Look at this one," he urged, showing her a picture of their father laughing with that same mysterious woman. "He was so happy. Where did this go?" It pierced Sarah like a knife, awakening feelings she had buried deep. "Maybe he lost it," she said, tears threatening to spill. Too afraid to confront what he really wanted. Too afraid to truly live. Matt nodded but didn't press her further. The siblings fell into a companionable silence, each wrestling with their thoughts, processing the textures of their father's neglected dreams alongside their own. What if the way to honor him was not to follow his path but to embrace their own? The air shimmered with potential, charged with the tension of unfolding futures. "I want to write again," Sarah blurted out, the admission catching even herself off guard. "I haven't written since high school." The weight of that truth rushed in like an ocean wave, sweeping away years of complacency. "Then let us do it," Matt encouraged, a grin breaking across his face. "Let us set out to reclaim our dreams, build something from his inspiration." For the first time in a long time, the notion felt tangible, no longer locked within the confines of fear. The idea was both exhilarating and terrifying. Perhaps this was the moment she needed to take control of her own narrative. But as they prepared to leave the attic, a stray thought nagged at her: had they truly uncovered everything? Was their father's journey more complex, layered with secrets that remained unspoken? As she turned the last page of the journal, a tucked note slipped to the floor, a gray envelope sealed with their father's distinct scrawl. It stood out against the muted backdrop, as though it had been waiting just for them. "What's this?" Matt asked, reaching for it, but Sarah found herself holding her breath, the impending revelation sending a jolt through her. Whatever was written inside could change everything once again. Was it the key to understanding their father's struggles, or perhaps a hidden challenge for them? As she grabbed the envelope, the echo of realization settled in. They could no longer turn back to the simplicity of the past. They stood on the edge of a new chapter, and the stakes had risen. Together, they would have to confront the next phase of their journey. But first, they needed courage to unveil the mysteries that lay within. A new chapter awaited, filled with unexpected truths just beyond their grasp. Sarah's fingers trembled as she turned the envelope over in her hands, the familiar scrawl evoking a dizzying mix of nostalgia and apprehension. The air in the attic thickened, and uncertainty swirled around her like an impending storm. What could be inside? This wasn't merely an envelope but a potential revelation that could reshape her understanding of both her father and herself. "Open it," Matt urged, his voice steadying her pulsing heartbeat. "Okay," she whispered, her resolve hardening. She carefully pried open the seal, the sound echoing in the stillness. Inside, she found a single sheet of paper, neatly folded. Unfolding it, her eyes scanned the words, a letter penned like a confession, laced with vulnerability. The letter spoke of dreams unfulfilled and battles silently fought. Their father, far from the emotionally distant figure she had known, confessed his fears and regrets. He had strived to chase his passions but often settled for safety. Every word bled with an emotional resonance that struck her core. It was as if the man she'd experienced through the lens of childhood had transformed into a flawed and deeply relatable human being. "Is it?" Matt's voice trailed off, catching Sarah's eyes filled with tears of both sorrow and empathy. "This is more than I expected," Sarah said, her voice wavering. "He wishes he'd taken risks, spent less time worrying about fitting into someone else's mold." Each line struck a chord within her. They were lessons, warnings. "It's not too late for us," Matt said, his assertion pulling her back from the brink of despair. "We can still live the way he wanted to but never could." Sarah nodded, but a lingering question gnawed at her: could she truly break free from her own constructed restraints? The line between inspiration and self-doubt had always felt perilously thin. She had spent years in the shadow of her father's expectations, and now faced with his admission, would she allow herself the luxury of pursuing her aspirations unfiltered? Matt's enthusiasm propelled her forward. "Let us write together," he exclaimed, eyes lighting up. "We could explore our father's experiences, interweave our journeys." The prospect ignited a flicker of excitement in her, yet it was quickly overshadowed by the weight of potential failure. Self-doubt crept back, quickening her pulse. Could she truly be as brave as her father wished he had been? The thought rang hollow, a distant echo of her childhood fears. What if her voice was not enough? "Let us not rush into something we might regret," she said, her tone cautious. "What if we create something that doesn't work out? That's part of the process," he insisted, the fervor evident in his unwavering gaze. "Every risk worth taking comes with the possibility of failure. But it's also where growth lies." His words, a mirror to her father's lessons, filled the room with electricity. For the first time, raw courage began to stitch itself into the fabric of her indecision. "Okay," she whispered, this time with unwavering conviction. "We'll start with writing, but let us also explore beyond the words. The things our father left untouched. Perhaps we need to dive deeper into our own realities, face what scares us." Matt simply nodded, a smile breaking across his face, buoying her spirit. They stood together, at the threshold of a fresh start, poised to unearth not only their father's legacy but their own identities buried beneath doubt and societal labels. The envelope, no longer a solitary reminder of their father's regrets, became a map, guiding them through the tangled paths of self-discovery. Sarah gathered her resolve, and a plan began to form. But as they began to sketch their journey, a new realization struck her: were there forces beyond their discovery that would impede their growth? Could the unknown lurk just beyond the edges of their ambitions, ready to challenge them? Ultimately, they were not just stepping into their father's world, they were preparing to breach uncharted territory. And that filled Sarah with both thrill and dread. With each passing moment, the weight of possibilities grew heavier. The adventure ahead beckoned, but so did the shadows of uncertainty lurking just beyond the horizon. Would they be ready to face the truths that lay ahead? Or would they again find themselves retreating back to silence, doubt, and familiarity? The next chapter awaited, a vast unknown filled with challenges and revelations just out of reach. The morning sun filtered gently through the attic window, illuminating the dust motes that danced in the warm light. Sarah sat cross-legged on the floor, the letter still crumpled in her hand, her resolve solidifying as she stared into the past that her father had encapsulated. Matt was at the desk, a notebook open in front of him, his pencil poised as if waiting for the universe to provide the perfect words. "Let us capture his voice," Sarah suggested, her tone suddenly more confident. "Maybe we can write down our impressions of what he said, weave our perspectives into his narrative." Matt nodded, enthusiasm flickering in his eyes. "Absolutely. It'll be like a conversation across time and space." As they commenced, Sarah found herself lost in thought. Her father's regrets resonated deeply within her, awakening the childhood dreams she had buried, visions of travel, creativity, and passion that had suffocated under the weight of expectations. Could she reintegrate those lost fragments? But the thought of resurrecting those dreams illuminated another truth: a paralyzing fear simmered beneath the surface. Risking failure felt akin to standing on the precipice of a cliff, the abyss whispering secrets of inadequacy. Would her voice be enough to carry the weight of their shared history? Could she transform familial disappointment into personal triumph? "Write fearlessly," Matt said suddenly, as if he could read her turmoil. "You have to embrace the risk. The moment you let self-doubt sneak in, you stifle your potential." His words sparked a faint flame within her, but it flickered dangerously. Could she withstand the scrutiny of both her father's legacy and her own limitations? She inhaled sharply, the tightness in her chest reflecting her internal clash. Writing was liberating, yet exposing herself to disappointment felt like flirting with danger. With shaky hands, she began to write. The words flowed, a nuanced examination of her father's dreams juxtaposed against her own aspirations. Each keystroke scratched open the wounds of unfulfilled potential, but the challenge was exhilarating. She was breaking the silence that had long trapped her in a mundane existence. As the pages filled, Sarah's doubts morphed into deeper revelations. She remembered moments in her life when she had chosen safety over bravado, the art classes abandoned for practical degrees, the invitations to explore the world turned down for stable jobs. Each of these decisions had reinforced an unsatisfactory narrative. What if she stepped outside these boundaries? Look at this passage, Matt interrupted her thoughts, pointing at the words that spilled forth from her fingers like a hidden reservoir of emotion. It's raw, honest, this is what we need. Encouragement surging, Sarah felt a tinge of excitement. Yet, the juxtaposition of triumph and self-loath could not be ignored. Self-discovery was not a linear path, it demanded confronting the reasons behind her inaction. Keep going, she urged herself, propelling her resolve like a soft whisper through the cluttered attic. Each new sentence turned her apprehensions into a mantra of possibility. But as exhilaration fueled her writing, anxiety clawed at her mind. What if the family expectations she wished to escape were clinging tighter than she realized? Were they shadows that would continue to suffocate her aspirations and twist her dreams into something unrecognizable? Are you okay? Matt asked, noticing the sudden change in her demeanor. The question hovered in the air, amplifying her doubts afresh. What if the fear of not being good enough kept her bound in a familiar prison? The memories of her father's attempted ambitions served as reminders that unfulfilled dreams could just as easily become her reality. Tell me, are we ready for this? Sarah admitted, vulnerability creeping into her voice. What if we lay bare our truths and it's still not enough? Matt leaned forward, determination lacing his expression, then we try again. Every truth we lay bare will only strengthen us. Their exchange settled around them, a shield against the uncertainty. As the foundation of their work solidified, the solidity of their purpose intertwined with the papers unfurling before them. Would the act of exposing their own truths transpire into power, or would they be left with the painful remnants of potential unfulfilled? As they pressed onward, a heavy sense of anticipation loomed. The path was obscured, but they were crossing the threshold of a crucial metamorphosis. Sarah stared into the unknown, her heart pounding as the cloaked challenges hovered on the horizon. What awaited them next? Thriving creativity or the paralyzing specter of failure? The weight of uncharted territory lay ahead, and with it, the promise of both discovery and confrontation. The unspoken question lingered: were they truly prepared for the truths that would shape their futures, finally forcing them to confront the dreams they had all but abandoned? As Sarah immersed herself in the rhythm of words and ideas, a curious transformation ignited within her. The apprehensive girl who had once shied away from the bold claims of her own desires began to slip away, replaced by someone more resolute and dynamic. With every sentence, the attic around them faded into a sanctuary, a microcosm where she finally held autonomy over her narrative. Realization struck her intermittently like lightning. She had spent so much time trying to fit into a mold crafted by familial expectations, desperately hoping to be the daughter her parents wanted. Yet in doing so, she had sacrificed essential pieces of who she really was. As the sunlight streamed through the attic window, its rays started to symbolize more than just warmth, they became a beaming affirmational light guiding her toward self-discovery. Do you remember that journal I kept during my sophomore year? She asked Matt suddenly, the thought flashing through her mind like an unexpected spark. You mean the one about wanting to travel and write? He replied, his gaze narrowed with intrigue. Yes. I wrote about wanting to visit the small towns of America, to cross paths with strangers and collect their stories. I let it all go after college, settled for a desk job. Why don't we weave your old dreams into this? Matt suggested, leaning closer, his excitement tangible. What if you write about those journeys? We could infuse our stories into your father's narrative, creating a new one that reflects your true self. The idea washed over her like a refreshing tide. Could she really merge her past aspirations with what lay ahead? It felt exhilarating and terrifying. Suddenly, the specter of failure seemed less daunting. Embracing this concept could be transformative, reshaping how she perceived both her own story and the legacy her father left behind. But what if I still don't measure up? She countered, a familiar trepidation creeping back. What if the world rejects that part of me? Sarah, Matt responded steadily, the world is a big place filled with admirers of authentic voices. If you hide who you are, no one will ever know to appreciate your stories. His words tethered her fears, anchoring them in the strength of their shared mission. A shift was taking place. With renewed determination, she cleared her throat and allowed her fingers to glide over the keyboard once more. As the words unfolded, she began to interlace memories of her father's dreams with her recollections of the places she wanted to visit: the colorful street festivals in New Orleans, the stark deserts of the West, the lush forests of the Pacific Northwest. Each mention conjured images that breathed life into her abandoned ambitions. Deep within her, a revelation manifested: writing wasn't merely an act of expressing fears or thoughts, it was a launching pad to reclaim her narrative. Every sentence she crafted seemed like a step toward reconciliation with her past, a way to show her father that she too longed for greatness on her terms. Hours passed unnoticed, the attic transformed into a sanctum of creation. As she wrote, fear transformed into exhilaration, her heart racing to the same rhythm as her hands. The act of revealing her truth now offered a cathartic release rather than a burden. This was not only about risking failure, this was about embracing a life authentically lived. But as she drafted the tales of journeys unexplored, the shadows of doubt resurfaced. What if this newfound path turned into yet another disappointment? What if her aspirations merely veered into an abyss of unfulfilled promises? Maddie, are we nearing a point of no return? She breathed, the weight of insecurity echoing in her tone. He paused, the gravity of her words hanging in the air. This is a pivotal moment for both of us. The risk might be immense, but so is the potential for growth. Their eyes locked, an unspoken agreement surged between them. They were on the brink of something profound, one that would either catapult them into a new dimension of possibility or plunge them into the terrifying depths of their limitations. Each revelation tempted them further into the unknown. As Sarah penned her final thoughts for the evening, the flickering light of the attic seemed to twinkle with an urgency, pushing her to confront what lingered just out of reach. Could she truly cross this threshold to chase her dreams? The resonance of her father's unfulfilled ambitions echoed in her heart. What legacy would she create? Her breath caught, her determination steel-like. Whatever lay ahead, it was time to face the looming truth: she would not simply rewrite the past, she would redefine her future. But the question whispered at the corners of her mind remained a daunting challenge veiling her next steps: were they truly prepared for the consequences of their choices, or would the weight of their revelations crush the dreams they dared to chase? As Sarah sat in the attic, surrounded by her father's possessions, a sense of clarity began to settle over her like a comforting blanket. Each letter, each photograph, each word she had poured onto the pages had peeled back layers of not only her father's life but her own identity as well. She glanced over at Matt, who was engrossed in compiling their shared thoughts, and it struck her how far they had come since that first tentative conversation. "Matt," she began, her voice steady with newfound purpose, "I think I've finally understood something vital: his legacy is ours to redefine." Her brother looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "He struggled because he was afraid of chasing his dreams," she replied, leaning forward in her seat. "But what if we don't repeat that mistake? What if we take the lessons he left for us and carve out our own paths instead?" Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of freedom washing over her. No longer did she need to be ensnared by the weight of unfulfilled expectations. Instead, each of those hidden pieces of her father's life represented vital lessons, essences of dreams both lost and almost found, and she was ready to embark on the journey of making her own dreams a reality. As they continued working, Sarah pieced together a plan. They could not only write about her father's past but also merge it with their own aspirations. Together, they would create a memoir woven with their father's highs and lows contrasted against their choices and hopes. This could serve not just as a tribute, but as a foundation to ignite their passions. The attic transformed into an incubator where imagination thrived. Days turned into weeks as the siblings delved into their project writing, researching, and exploring themes of ambition, doubt, and resilience. Sarah found herself discovering written words that had once echoed in her heart, resurfacing memories of her youthful desire to travel and document stories. Then one afternoon, a significant breakthrough occurred. What if we focus each chapter on a specific location? Matt proposed, the excitement evident in his voice. Narrate our travels and intersect those experiences with the lessons from Dad's life. That's brilliant! She exclaimed, her heart racing with enthusiasm. The realization hit her, this wasn't merely a book, it was a manifesto, a declaration of their reclamation. With each chapter they crafted, Sarah felt her insecurities begin to ebb away. She visited old haunts in the city that inspired her, taking notes on every encounter with strangers willing to share their stories. The looming shadows of self-doubt steadily receded under the weight of genuine effort. Every experience added substance to her newfound narrative. The project reached its final stages, the exhilarating promise of completion electrifying the air. As the last period was typed, Sarah glanced at the screen, her heart swelling with a mix of accomplishment and anticipation. They had not only honored their father's legacy but had transformed it into something entirely their own. "Do you remember how we used to dream about exploring the world?" she asked Matt one evening, their faces illuminated by the glow of the computer screen. "Now we made it tangible." "Yeah, we did. And you know what?" he added, pride radiating from him. "We've written our own stories, channeled his dreams into something meaningful." He would have wanted that. Then came the moment to share their work with the world. The fear of exposure crept in once more, but this time Sarah had grown accustomed to the discomfort. She knew what this meant. It was like staring into the vast expanse of opportunity, no longer feeling bound by the fears of her past but empowered by the potential of her future. The day their manuscript was completed, she felt a surge of elation. They had forged a connection not only with their father's spirit but with each other as well. It clarified their roles in this ever-evolving journey of growth, ambition, and love. Standing at the precipice of their new adventure, Sarah finally felt an inner strength chromatically distinct from her prior hesitations. It was confidence rooted in deep-seated resolve and a genuine connection to self transformed by acknowledgement of past pain and the conscious choice to emerge renewed. That very afternoon, she uploaded excerpts from their work onto a blog dedicated to their journey and sent their manuscript to publishers. The act felt liberating. It was more than a submission, it was affirmation she was choosing to share her voice, a voice that had long been stifled. As they awaited responses, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling ready to face whatever success or challenge lay ahead. She had proven to herself that she could break the patterns of her past, defy inherited limitations, and embrace life's unpredictability. Empowered and at peace, she turned to Matt, a smile breaking across her face. "We did it." And at that moment, Sarah realized she had not only redefined her father's legacy but had also reclaimed her life. She stood not just as his daughter but as a woman who would chase her dreams without fear, someone who would teach Emily the value of embracing opportunities and conquering fear head-on. Now was her time, and she was ready to shine. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. You need to subscribe now to stay part of this transformative journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread the inspiration. Comment your reactions and theories about this incredible conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to support those who need to believe in their own growth.